Now, today, interesting to note that, of course, we showed you Tanya Plibersek, who, look, I like Tanya Plibersek, but I think she obviously went way too far when she said this about the incoming opposition leader, Peter Dutton.
Well, I think there'll be a lot of children who've watched a lot of Harry Potter films who'll be very frightened of what they're seeing on TV at night, that's for sure.
What, you're saying he looks strange? He looks odd?
I'm saying he looks a bit like Voldemort, and we'll see whether he can do what he promised he'd do when he was last running for leader, which is smile more.
Now, I know you're not allowed to criticise the new dear leader, but let's just point out exactly what is true after the election that was before the election, which is old Each Way Albo. Now, Albo didn't come out of the blocks straight away today and say Tanya Plibersek said and did the wrong thing. Instead, he tried to pretend that that evil Mr Morrison did exactly the same thing.
She has already apologised for those comments. There were a few comments made by the former Prime Minister about my appearance, you might recall, as part of the election campaign.
I do recall, and remember it was in our pub test with the former Prime Minister where he talked about that he didn't need a new pair of glasses and he didn't need to lose weight. People knew who he was. Now, the electorate knew who he was, made their decision, and Albo is now the Prime Minister. Hardly the same as suggesting that a politician looks like a character in a Harry Potter film, and certainly one that doesn't even have a nose. But for his part, again, I say Each Way Albo, first the excuse and then the pivot to she shouldn't have said it.
We should not refer to people's appearance. Let's discuss policy differences rather than... I want to change the way that politics operates.
For his part, Peter Dutton, well, he says it's water off a duck's back, but it hurt.
Point out people's, deficiencies in terms of their policies and their decisions. If they're not making decisions that they're going to help the country or help people, fair enough. But when you're going for personal characteristics, that's a different story. I'm not the prettiest bloke on the block, but I hope that I'm going to be pretty effective.
Now, of course, the tallest mountain to climb is that you face straight after being removed from government. Now, the expectations are that, of course, when a government comes to power, they're there for a couple of terms. But when you take over as an opposition leader, you obviously have to give confidence to the millions of people, and don't forget, millions of people voted to keep the former government, and 2/3 of people didn't vote directly with their first preference for the current government. But for this existential nonsense, which I've said before, that I don't want to give the left what it demands, which is a civil war about the future of the Conservative side of politics. And Peter Dutton seems to be of the same belief. This is what he said in announcing his candidacy for the leadership. Nobody else is standing, so he will be the opposition leader. And this is a clear statement of principles. We aren't the moderate party. We aren't the Conservative party. We are the Liberals. We are the Liberal Party. We believe in family, whatever their composition. That's really important because, of course, in 2022, families look a lot different than they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And every family of every makeup should be celebrated, and that is an excellent focus for Peter Dutton. He also says that it's the party of small and micro business because you and I all know that big money has gone woke. From super funds, financial institutions, big companies that want to deal with big unions, but it's the small businesses, the people who try to build a life for themselves, as well as the micro businesses where maybe it's just you and an ABN. That is who he wants to go for. And as I've showed you before, 87 seats in the parliament have a household net worth of somewhere between $500,000 and $300,000 a year. The Tiffany Teals, well, they represent seats on their way up to $1 million, and that's fine. But the sheer bulk of Australia is suburban. There are millions of people who live in the regions. There are millions of people who try to build their own life. And I promise that those people are at the heart of what this bloke wants to do, with first an opposition and then at some point an alternative government, should fill your heart with confidence that he gets what happened at the election and he gets what needs to happen to eventually win one down the track. I love what he said today. He also was very direct with my mate Ray Hadley on 2GB about the direction of the opposition.
I've learned a lot from the leaders I've served under, and I believe that we can win the next election, but there's a lot of work between now and then, and the Liberal Party has to get back to being the Liberal Party and being the broad church. And we're not the moderate Conservative Party. We're not the Conservative moderate party. We are the Liberal Party. But I do want people to see, the complete character that I am, not just what they've seen through sound grabs when I'm talking about, boats or all sorts of different issues, which are, difficult issues.
He's a good guy, he's a substantive guy with a wonderful family, and he is exactly the type of person that is needed to reset the opposition, to refocus it, to bring back confidence to its supporters. But he also showed today that he is going to throw a punch when necessary. It's not all going to go Albo's way for the next 3 years, and as I've told you many times before, Albo has set the expectations. Did you get a pay rise? Did they cut your power bill? Were 600,000 people employed in green energy? These are not easy things to do, and an opposition has every right to hold a government to account on its promises.
I don't agree with many of his policies. I don't think he's got the team around him to, as I say, deliver what's needed in the tough times that we're facing over the next few years, and they are going to drive up electricity prices. We do know that interest rates will be higher under Labor, they always are, and unemployment will go up under Labor. So there are a lot of challenges on the horizon, and I don't think he's got the capability to deal with those realities, but we'll point that out over the next 3 years.